Hey everyone, this is Nickster, and you probably clicked on this video for one reason and one reason only. Um, so ever since I made my face-to-face with newer samples video, I've gotten countless requests from people to do a breakdown of all the samples in it and everything, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I was planning on doing this months ago, but I've put it off several times because of, computer problems and stuff like that. My computer is several years old at this point, and also because I've been very busy with college and other music stuff and whatnot. But now I'm finally getting to it, and I want to do it. So let me start by saying that the idea for this project first came from someone on the Sample Hunting Discord server, a server where we look for samples in music. The first incarnation of which is now closed down and was replaced with a different one last year. But when it was still open, someone mentioned, in one of the channels, someone mentioned that they would want to hear someone do a rendition of Daft Punk's Face to Face, but with newer samples, like samples from a newer time range than what was used in the original Face to Face. So the original Face to Face uses samples from 1968 to 1982, and they wanted to hear what it would be like if it were like 30 years later. So that would be 1998 to 2012. So most of the samples that I used here are within that time range, and there's only one sample that's outside of that time range, and I will get to that later on in this video. But other than that, yeah, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do a breakdown. We're going to do a breakdown of Face to Face, but it uses newer samples. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first sample I want to talk about here is the main drum beat, which is taken from Time to Get Away by LCD Soundsystem. And when I was initially looking for samples to use in this project, and mind you, remember the range that I was going for was late 90s to early 2010s, I was trying to look for songs that had like a similar 4 on the floor kind of beat, and it kind of like the one Face to Face opens with, like, and Time to Get Away was one of the first ones that came to me because I remembered how it kind of opens with like a very similar pattern, with a very similar drum pattern. So I decided to use it, and so I took the sample, and this is what it sounded like originally.
It's time to get away.
So I took it, and I warped it so that it would match the tempo, and I set it to repitch so that it wouldn't sound like warped when I stretched it out. That it would just lower the pitch when I stretch it so that the drums would still kind of sound natural. And then
It's time to get away.
So that was our loop. That was my loop. And so then I took it, I cut off the end, kind of like how the end gets cut off in the beginning loop of Face to Face. I put it in, and I just looped it throughout the entire track, and that's our main drum loop for Face to Face. That's our main drum loop for this track. Alright, next sample we're going to talk about here is the riff from Can't Stop by Red Hot Chili Peppers. So, similar to Time to Get Away, I was trying to think of songs with kind of like the daga, like a daga 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 kind of riff, kind of like the Evil Woman riff sampled in Face to Face. You know, like the daga 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 daga, like And while I was thinking of similar sounding riffs, the Can't Stop riff came to mind because it's also a very iconic guitar riff, and I noticed there were like a lot of similarities between that and the Evil Woman riff, specifically how the Evil Woman riff is chopped in Face to Face, like da 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 da. So I figured it would be a great match. It would be a great replacement for for the Evil Woman riff in Face to Face. So I'm going to demonstrate how I chopped it up here. And so initially I started with, this is the intro of the original song. So this is what I started with. This is the original riff. Probably needs no introduction. So I took it and I pitched it up 4 semitones to match the key of Face to Face. And now I'm going to demonstrate how I chop this up. So I started with this little piece here. I started with this little piece here, and so I cut this up here, and at specific spots, so that I could make it match the Evil Woman riff. And these are the places that I noticed felt kind of similar to the Evil Woman riff. So then and then I took the ding ding ding. Alright, so I took that and I chopped it up so that it would, I chopped up these little quick little notes so that it would match Evil Woman riff, and I'm going to show you how I did that now. We have another chop. We have another set of chops that comes in later, right here, and it sounds like this. So the first part over here is kind of taken from the same portion, but the rest here is taken from a little later in the riff. So that's how I made the chops, the Evil Woman chops, out of this riff. I am really proud of how I used this sample, and I feel like it's what drew a lot of people into this video, because it is a really smooth sample chop. I'm gonna say, I don't want to glaze myself here, but I do think the way I chopped it is nicely done. It's not like I just took one piece and just kind of repeated it at different pitches. Like, I took advantage of like the groove and how the riff sounds to my advantage, and kind of made what you see here. Oh yeah, a little fun fact that I wanted to say about the can't stop chop, is that it replaces not only the Evil Woman sample, but the first instance of the Carrie Lucas sample, the dee, which for a long time people thought was also from the Evil Woman riff, but it turned out to be an entirely different sample. So, of course, I'm talking about. So that replaces the first instance of the Carrie Lucas sample, Sometimes Love Goes Wrong by Carrie Lucas. And Another fun fact that I wanted to say is that for that I was originally going to use "Just Lose It" by Eminem, but it sounded absolutely horrible, so I decided not to go with it and just use the "Can't Stop" riff because it sounded much better. Next sample I want to talk about here is "Conservation of Two" by Sweet Trip. This one isn't a replacement for any sample in the original Face to Face. The only reason I put it in here was because the song kind of sounded empty, and I wanted something to like act as like a bass line. And this fit the late '90s to early 2010s range, so I put it in here. So this is what the chops sound like by themselves. And this is what I did to chop it up. Let me copy and paste it over here. So this is taken from the very beginning of the song. So pitch down one semitone, and then chopped up like this. This chop here in particular was pitched down a little more. And then these over here were copied and pasted and then pitched down again. A couple, like another semitone. No, two semitones. So here's the full chop. And that's what I used for this kind of like bass line, like backing track kind of thing. The doom 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 do. It's a little simpler over here because I wanted to give it some variation, but the overall concept is the same. The overall idea is the same throughout. So here's what it sounds like. And here's what it sounds like with the rest of the samples. Next, I want to talk about the Call Me Maybe samples in here. So let me explain. So in the original Face to Face, one of the samples used is Body and Soul by Firefall. And it's basically like this little plucky guitar that gets chopped throughout the song and kind of adds like a bit of like texture to the song. It's like a dunk, dunk, something kind of like that. And while I was looking for an equivalent of that sample, one that almost immediately came to me was "Call Me Maybe" because it has like that plucky pizzicato intro, the dunk, 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 dunk. And I feel like that and the Firefall sample were very similar in that regard, so I decided to use "Call Me Maybe" for this chop. So what I did, this is what it sounds like on its own. So what I did is I took a single individual chop from the intro. I just took this chop here, and it's from this part of the intro. This is what it sounded like originally. So I pitched it down 6 semitones. and took this chop here. So I used this throughout the entire song, and I actually have this song. I actually have this chop here, and then I copied it and brought it down another octave. And then I combine them together, and it sounds like this. I also use the song later on in the other section, in the B section, or in the second section of the song, where it's essentially just ding ding. And here's everything. Here is the sample with everything together. And that's all there is for that. The next sample I want to talk about here is Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, which I used for 3 different samples. It was technically 4 different samples in this project. I mainly chose it for a couple of reasons. One, because the song is kind of nostalgic to me, and 2, because there's a lot of like guitar riffs and stuff that I thought would be really good for some of the parts in Face to Face. So I'm gonna go through each one of them. So first we have. Wait, is this the right one? Wait, they're 2 layered here. Okay, first we have this one right here, which is used in place of the Silence and I sample, the Alan Parsons Silence and I, and this is taken from the bridge of Since You've Been Gone. It originally sounded like this. So I took that and I pitched that down 3 semitones. And I took this snippet, and that's what I used for Silence and I. Oops. And then below that is this sample, which I used for the Steppenwolf sample, and also It Keeps You Running by Doobie Brothers. Technically this is 2 in 1. This is taken from after the bridge with the guitar riff. So I took that, I pitched that down 6 semitones. And then I took that and used that for that sample. Now, I also used it later on as a replacement for another sample. And this one, and the other replacement that I used it for in question is the Boz Scaggs sample, the You Got Some Imagination, the dum dum da, later on in the second section of Face to Face, which is over here. This is taken from the intro of the song. So what I did was I stretched it out and I pitched it down 3 semitones. I took this little beginning snippet and I just used that as a replacement for the Boz Scaggs sample. So those are all the instances of this song in here. So yeah, those are all the instances of this song in here. So let's move on to the next one. And next we have another sample chop that a lot of people seem to be impressed by, and that's Weird Fishes by Radiohead. One of 2 Radiohead samples of different songs in this project. So when I was trying to think of oh yeah, I should say that this replaces Old and Wise by Alan Parsons' project. When I was trying to think of a replacement for that song, I was thinking of like I knew how like Colin Blunstone had like almost like this very soft, slightly moany-ish voice, I'd say, and I was thinking of maybe songs like I was thinking of songs within my time range that had like a similar singing style or a singer with a similar like vocal inflection, and who better to pick than Tom York? So I decided to go with Weird Fishes, and yeah, at this point I was like, I'm not beating the Rate Your Music allegations with this one. I went with Weird Fishes, and there's two different samples. Obviously, there's the ah, and then later there's the chase sample. So for the first one, I bounced this in place, so it's not the whole thing. But what I did was I took the part of the song where Tom says yeah. Well, it's actually pitched up here. Let me pitch it down. So I took that part of the sample, and what I did was I pitched it up. I pitched it up with the Ableton algorithm that doesn't change the format, so that it just sounds like they're raising their voice. It doesn't sound chipmunked. I took that snippet and I reversed it because I noticed it was like descending. So then instead of like rearranging the chops, I feel like it would be better if I reversed it because it sounds like his voice is ascending, kind of like in the Old and Wise sample, like I cut off this part here so that it only started at, so that it would kind of have the same rhythm or like the same pattern as the Old and Wise sample. And then here it is together with everything. Mind you, I did also use this sample in the second section because it does appear in Face to Face, that same Old and Wise sample. Not Chase, but that same snippet of the Old and Wise sample does appear in the second section. And then the second sample I want to talk about here is the one that I used to recreate the known by a lot of people as the Chase sample. The Chase. A different clip of Weird Fishes. Okay, I think this one is actually the full track, not bounced. So I did the same thing here. This is what it sounded like originally. So I took the part where he says, "Why should I stay here?" And because I felt like it kind of sounded like like I wasn't trying to look for like things that sounded exactly the same. I was just looking for things that kind of emulated the same vibe or like the same melody, and that I could change a little bit if need be. So I use this. Wait, oh no. Dragged it back, so no. Alright, so I trimmed it to only be the size that it needs to be. This is the clip. Then I pitched it up 2 semitones. And that's this sample, which is also paired up with a System of a Down sample that I will get to later. But those are the Weird Fishes samples, and it's not the only, like I said, it's not the only Radiohead sample in this track. Because next up we also have samples from 15 Step from the same album, In Rainbows. I used this song for 2 different samples in Face to Face. The first one being House at Pooh Corner, and the second one being the second ELO sample, Can't Get It Out of My Head. And this is the first one. This is probably the sample in the project that was the most extensively chopped. So there's going to be a bit more like breaking down. I'm going to have to do a bit more of like breaking down of the sample here. So let's start with this one. This is the House at Pooh Corner. Christopher Rob. A lot of people said that it sounded like he was saying in Chicago, which I find really funny. So let's show you how I did it here. Alright, so I'm gonna separate all the little bits and then show you where they're from. Alright, so these are taken somewhat earlier on in the song. So I'm gonna play them all one after the other. So these are all taken from slightly different points in the song. These first three are taken from the line, "Used to be alright." So I'll demonstrate how I chop them up. So this first one over here, the used part of the line, but stretched out to be very slow, and then also pitched up 2 semitones. So this is how This is how I chop the first part. Alright, and then the second part is this. Which is the same line, but sped up instead of stretched out and made slower. And this time pitched down 2 semitones. So I chopped it like this. Wait, sorry, like this. Well, let me reposition them. It'll make it easier to chop. So that's the first part here, and then the next one. This one. No, sorry. This one. Once again, the same line, but this pitched up 2 semitones and sped up a little bit, and I took I took that and used it. And here's what our chop sounds like now. And then the last sample that I used for this was from later in the song, the line, "To the cat, get your tongue." And that is, this sample remained unpitched, and I just took a chop from it, I stretched it out and used a chop from here. So I just used this one. Alright, this right here. And then that's how I made this chop. In Chicago. In Chicago. Alright, and then we have the other one later on. Oh yeah, actually, before I show you that, this is what the chop sounds like with the rest of the stuff. Alright, and now let's get to the other chop, which is the ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra sample. This is all exclusively taken from the do the cat get your tongue line. So let's separate these, and I'll show you each one. And then here are all the samples. I'm going to show you. Here's the first one. So this is that line, the "Can I Get Your Tongue" line, sped up and pitched up 7 semitones, but with the once again with that algorithm that makes it so that it gets pitched up, but it doesn't sound like chipmunky. So I chopped this part. And that's the first part of this chop. Next one is over here. I took the get in the thing. So that's what we have here so far. And then the other two. I took the see. So I was gonna put that here. Chop that right here. And then there's one more chop. This is, I think, the only one that all these are pitched up 7 semitones. This is the only one that isn't pitched up 7. It's actually only pitched up 3. And I took, let's see. I took the part from it and pasted it right here. And then here is the whole chop. I kind of said it earlier, but this was the sample that I kind of had to change the most for it to sound like something from Face to Face. But I still kind of like this. I still like this sample chop that I did here for this one. So those are the 15-step chops, and I think we still have a few samples from this section of the song, which we're gonna get to now. Alright, so the next sample I'm going to talk about here is the one that I used as the replacement for the Dan Mason sample, the All Along the Watchtower sample, which is concerning the UFO sighting near Highland, Illinois by Sufjan Stevens. And from now on, I'm just going to call it UFO because that title is so long. When I was first thinking of samples for this project, I thought of my range, like the time range that I set, and I was thinking of a lot of like indie and whatever. And this was actually one of the first samples I put in the project because I felt like I could do something with the piano, whether it was this sample or something else. I ended up using it as the Dan Mason sample and also another sample later on that I'll talk about. So this instance in particular is taken from the opening of the song, which I will extend out. And this is what it sounds like normally. And then I use this part right here. So I took that, I pitched it down, well, I stretched it, I synced it to the tempo, I pitched it down 1 semitone. I chopped that part because it kind of reminded me of the from the Dan Mason sample. So I use this for as the replacement. And that's that one. It's paired up with it's paired up with another sample here. And a fun fact that I wanted to give is that I was originally also going to use You Owe Me by Nas, but it kind of made it sound a bit cluttered, so I decided to not go with it in the end. And this is what it would have sounded like. So I ended up not using it. So here it's deactivated and muted. And the next instance of this sample of UFO that I'm going to talk about is over here, where I used it as part of the, I guess part of the Deborah Washington sample, because I also have another sample acting as that same sample here that I will talk about later too. So this part is also taken from the piano intro. Alright, let me extend it and show you what I did to it. Oh, I should mention I pitched it down 3 semitones, so it originally sounded like this. So I took the ding ding, and then I pitched it down 3 semitones. I chopped this part, and instead of having the rhythm be boom boom boom, I started with the boom boom because it kind of reminded me of the boom boom from the Deborah Washington sample. The letter is what it's called, the shaker sample. I feel like that would add to that rhythmic aspect of the sample. So I use that specific chop here, and that's what it is. With everything. And that's it for that sample. Alright, and after that we have the sample that I used as the replacement for Faith in the Families by Poco, or for those of you from Sample Chord, I should say, Faith in the Families by Poco. I used the track Nassau by Oneohtrix Point Never, which in and of itself is already a Plunderphonics track. One of my favorite tracks of his. I love the way that he mixes all the samples and everything. So, the Poco sample is like this long, like drawn out chord, like a boom. And when I thought of that chord, it almost instantly reminded of the repeating piano loop in Nassau, which is, fun fact, taken from a McDonald's commercial, but that's besides the point. That's for a different video. So I decided to toy around with it here, and this is what it was initially. So I pitched it down, what I would say, it says here 2 semitones, and then pitched it up 30 cents. So that would be, I think that would be like minus 1 semitone and 70 cents. I think I'm just going by how you can control cents in Ableton. Anyway, I pitched it down like that. And then I chopped it right here, where the piano sample loops in the original track. And another fun fact I want to give is that a lot of people said they thought they heard the Discord sound, the Discord notification sound in here, and I think it's because of this little short piano, like split-second snippet, because it does kind of sound like the boop. I left it in because I thought it would give the sample a bit more character. it was really funny how so many people commented the same thing about it sounding like the Discord sound. So here it is. Oh yeah, I'm gonna show the full extended sample one more time. And then chop it up again, and then that's what I use for that. And now we finally moved on to the second section of the song. So the next two samples I want to talk about here are the ones that I used for Deborah Washington, and the ones that I used for Deborah Washington and Be Free, Loggins and Messina Be Free, respectively. So the first one that I'm talking about here is Never Meant by American Football, which is used in conjunction with the Sufjan Stevens sample I talked about earlier. These both kind of act as the same sample. There are a couple of instances where I have where I have more than one sample acting as the same thing, and this is one of them. This is also this is the first section I think I worked on, and I thought the way that like in that with the iconic guitar riff in this track, there were little like snippets that felt like they would fit almost the melody of the Deborah Washington sample, especially like the boom, kind of like that. So this riff probably needs no introduction to most people. Never Meant riff. American Football. And so I took it, I stretched it out, I synced it to the tempo, I pitched it down one semitone, chopped it right at the part where where the other guitars come in. It's in the beginning, like after the melody begins, and the other guitars come in. So right here, I took that part and then I chopped it right here for the sample, and used that as part of as one of the samples I used for the Deborah Washington sample, and it just repeats every time that spot comes up in the song. And then for Be Free, which is another sample that's layered on top of the Deborah Washington sample in Face to Face, Loggins and Messina, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Yeah, I think so. That it's a quiet little ee. So, and then when I heard the ee, I immediately thought of Kids by MGMT, because of the take away what you need from it. Like, I thought it would be good for that. I thought it would be a pretty good match. This is, I think, one of the only samples where like I actually did I actually did a little bit more modification outside of like time stretching and adding compression. Like I did put like a high pass filter on it, because it did sound a little cluttered without it. So here's the sample normally, which I think also needs no introduction. I stretched out the E, and then I pitched it up 2 semitones. I chopped it specifically at the parts where I stretched the E, and then initially I didn't put a high pass filter, but then I decided I needed to because it sounded really cluttered. So then I put on a high pass filter, and that's what this sounds like. This is what this sounds like with the high pass filter. And that's the sample here. And then together, these two samples sound like this. these two samples by themselves, this is what they sound like. And then also with the Sufjan Stevens sample in the mix, here's what that sounds like with that as well. Alright, so next up is the song that I used as the Tell Me to My Face sample. And I have to say that the Tell Me to My Face sample in Face to Face is probably one of my favorite samples, or one of my favorite ways in which something was sampled in Face to Face. Like, every time I hear the da-la-la, like, it is so satisfying, and it fits right in, like, it fits like a glove in the whole range of songs sampled there. So for this sample, I decided to use Jesus Etc. by Wilco. Now, I'm not super familiar with Wilco's discography, but I had heard of this song in another mashup or whatever, and I decided, well, I was thinking of songs that I could use as like a that kind of hit in the same way as the Tell Me to My Face sample, because like almost as like a slowed down, like a like guitar lick. I almost immediately thought of the fiddle intro in this song, and I thought that like chopping up the little like the strumming, like the fiddle would emulate the Tell Me to My Face sample really well. So these are all taken from the intro, as I said. These are all taken from the intro, and I'm gonna expand them and show you where I chop them. So the first and third chops are the same, and they sound like this. It's this boom right here, and it's the exact same for the third. The second sample is taken in a slightly different spot. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the first and third are pitched down 2 semitones and up 30 cents. And the third is pitched down 1 semitone and down 30 cents. So I took this one from a slightly different spot. I chopped that up. And then the first and third are, like I said, in the same spot. So I chopped it at those places and put them together. And this is the result. In retrospect, I think I could have pitched it down like maybe 10 or 20 more cents, because I think it does sound a little detuned in comparison to everything else, but I still like how I used this in here with everything else, regardless. Okay, so the next two samples I want to talk about here are used as the same sample, the second instance of the Carrie Lucas sample, because in the original Face to Face, it's used in both sections, first with the Evil Woman riff, with the beep, and then later on here with the Tell Me to My Face and all the other samples. So the boom boom is what I was trying to replicate for this part, and I used 2 samples for it. The first one being Pro Love Ad by Sweet Trip. It's the second Sweet Trip sample that I used in this song, and basically what I did for this is I chopped the part where Valerie sings "Into the Light I See," because I realized that the us kind of sounds like the boom boom in the Carrie Lucas sample. It was pitched up 1 semitone, so. So I chopped it right here, and then I combined it with this consonant sound so that it would sound more like boom, boom. Alright, so I combined it over here. I combined these two samples together, and it made this. So that's essentially what I did for that. And that is also combined with another sample, Long Season by Fishmans, the first part with a piano just starts. Yeah, now I'm really not beating the Rate Your Music allegations. This one I really didn't put it in for any other reason other than that the Sweet Trip sample alone kind of sounded empty, and a lot of these were kind of RYM core anyway, so why not kind of lean into that aspect and have people comment on it? I thought it was a little funny. So I used the descending piano from Long Season, and this is what it sounds like normally. So I took this specific part. I chopped this specific part right here, pitched it down one semitone, and that's what I ended up using for this, for this part. So this combined with the Sweet Trip sample sounds like this. We are now in the home stretch, and I'm down to the last few samples that I have to talk about, or that I'm going to talk about. And the next one is the one that I used for Lahaina Luna, which is in this project Alpha and Omega by Boards of Canada. I didn't pick this for any real reason other than the fact that I was close to done with the project. I just wanted to, or at least with the smaller samples on the project, and I just quickly thought of a song within my time range, and this was one of the first ones that I thought of. Like I thought to myself, oh, I could just chop up the synth, and it would work, I guess. So here's what so this is what I did. They're all pitched a different number of semitones. I think they're all taken from the same section. Here's the first one. So that's the first one. I chopped that there. It's stretched out and pitched down one semitone and up 50 cents. So -1 plus 50 if you're on Ableton. And then the second one is here. It's faster, and it's pitched up 6 semitones and down 50 cents. So I took this part here, and I used it as the second chop. Alright, and then for the third chop, it's here. This one is pitched up to an absurdly high 11 semitones and down 50 cents. I use this part here, and that is the that's the third chop. And for those of you for those of you who were in sample chord, now we take the two Lahaina Luna samples, and then we put them with this one. Actually, that should be we take the two Alpha and Omega samples. Ignore what I said. And this is our sample. And with everything else. Next up we have the sample that I use as the replacement for South City Midnight Lady by the Doobie Brothers, and it's Toxicity by System of a Down. Now, this one, I was once again really close to the end of the project, and I decided to choose this one because that section in South City Midnight Lady is kind of sounds like just some guitar strumming and some chimes and stuff like that, kind of like some little instruments here and there. And I felt like the Toxicity, the opening of it, kind of had somewhat of the same vibe. So I just went with the opening little riff right when the song starts as the sample. Here it's pitched up one semitone, so. So yeah, I pitched it up one semitone, I synced it to the tempo, and I matched it up with the other Weird Fishes sample that I used as the chase sample, and that is essentially what I did for the other Doobie Brothers sample. And finishing up here, I'm going to talk about the last two samples that I used for the project, because I've already talked about all the main samples, all the little snippets. There's just two left. The vocals are the exact same Todd Edwards vocals used in the original Face to Face. I originally had plans to use an AI conversion thing to make him sound like Kanye, but I couldn't get it to work. Every time I tried to do it, I think it said it was too long, or I don't know the vocals weren't filtered properly or whatever. So I decided to scrap that. The vocals are the exact same. The bass line during Todd's verses is actually also sampled from something else. The bass line in the original Face to Face is not a sample. It's a regular bass line. But I decided to use a sample for this one. One, because I wanted to lean into the plunderphonics aspect a little bit more, and two, because I was lazy. I didn't feel like making a bass. So it's the opening synth bass from Poker Face by Lady Gaga. So I just took it. Originally it was I brought it down a whole octave. And then I took these first two beats, boom 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 boom, boom 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 boom, and then I just chopped that and played it, repeated, looped it at different pitches to emulate the bass from Face to Face. Here it is with everything else.
What's going on? Could this be my understanding? It's not your fault. I was being too demanding.
And finally, the last sample here is the one that I used to recreate the Twins theme flute towards the end of the track, which I was trying to think of songs that had like a quiet melodic intro, kind of like that flute, and within my range, and I felt like American Boy by Estelle had almost like a very similar vibe. It has that distinct opening with the reversed chimes and everything, so I decided to go with that. So it's chopped up like this. I pitched these up different amounts. This first one's 4 semitones, also this one, and this one. They're all taken from the same part of the intro. Or they're all taken from, the same part of the song. They're all taken from the intro, I should say. I just chopped up the different chords in the intro to match with the chords in the bass line of Face to Face, so that it wouldn't clash. And yeah, that's it. That's all the samples in this project. That's pretty much everything explained. Thank you guys for watching this so much, and thank you guys once again for all the support on the video. I'm really happy about that. I'm super grateful for it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of all the samples. I know it's been a long time coming, and I do promise that there's more stuff coming soon. I'm definitely considering turning this into maybe like a series. The next one might be around the corner. Who knows? And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day, and bye. I don't know.